the city has put a lot of money into the hotels, so we feel we are kind of a partner in there, and we hope the commissioner looks at it the same way. And with that in mind, what we would like to do was work with them to try to find a potential buyer that we feel would be good for the city.
Informed of the progress we made as we went from the regions.
Combination of pines and ash. There's 3-4 different.
There was no largest ice cream cone. Now there may be some place out there somebody doing one, and they warned us that. They said, we have no guarantee that somebody won't build this before yours is processed through. But mostly what I want it to be is just kind of a fun event.
What's scheduled for that day? That's there's something. We had something on our calendar. You can have
mining during the week of the 14th.
And I think the kind of vote that you saw there shows the widespread approval that our members had for doing this.
$6 million cannot be used towards that, and I know also Senator Solon was here earlier.
Limiting the construction and maintenance to plans submitted and identified by public documents.
The toll Coles project, and at that point I'd recommend we suspend the rule.
I think we should handle those people first before we start off on new ventures that are only going to cost more.
Street improvements, what that is going to save us over a 10-year or 15-year period of time, because I believe if we get at some of this earlier on, we're going to end up saving the taxpayers.
I'm not saying that things shouldn't cost anything, that we shouldn't pay, but the costs of those things have been rising really at a percentage that is not acceptable, and we question why there is such large rises in health costs.
It really brings it home. Sometimes when we've practiced security things in the past, you think it's practice, and this makes it very real that we need to be prepared. And awareness is often the best defense. But I think we also have to remember that the real victims of this kind of violence are the women in the Brainerd community, the people who are have their reproductive health services taken from them, and in many low-income women, this is their primary source of health care.
if there's one caution that I might give, it's to encourage kids not to go out into the street or run up to a squad car. Stay on the sidewalk. The officers will pull over. If you just flag them down, they'll be more than happy to give them the cards.
Major events like the Air Show and Blues Fest have promoters seeing dollar signs. Every time a high-profile event is hosted in the Twin Ports, it can mean millions of dollars for our local economy.
A typical large-scale music event for a weekend can have a $3 or $4 million impact on a community. Just a straw poll this morning, we found that all the motels and hotels in the Superior area are booked nearly to capacity, and you know the folks coming in are going to be eating in local restaurants and shopping and especially for an event like this.
And with the capacity to hold nearly 20,000 people, promoter Tracy Lundeen says Connors Point Festival Park will be able to bring in top-rated names who have never performed in our region.
That puts us in a competitive situation with any amphitheater in the country right now, actually, which means that if Grateful Dead is playing the 18 and 20,000 seat amphitheaters, or Jimmy Buffett, or Billy Joel and Elton John, or Garth Brooks, we can do any of those shows here.
Music lovers, promoters, and merchants aren't the only ones profiting from these type of events. For its investment in Connors Point Festival Park, the City of Superior will be earning money to put into other tourism projects.
We'll be extending the waterfront trail. We'll be putting in more fountains. We'll be putting in picnic areas. We'll be surfacing that trail. On the Tourist Development Foundation side, we have plans for a police and fire hall of fame for the state of Wisconsin. A lot of really wonderful things for the Meteor and Barker's Island. We're going to see this be the catalyst for a lot of other wonderful events.
If the weather cooperates, Lake Rattle and Roll is expected to bring in more than 3,000 people and their dollars. In Superior, Gina Katzmark, News 6.
Where else can we scrub?
Getting ready to go back to school isn't just about shopping. Sometimes it requires scrubbing floors. But when school moves to a brand new place, cleaning isn't so bad.
Very different from our little old schools. Really cool. It was really cramped all the time and not enough room.
Today, the 100-year-old halls of the Lowell School will once again be filled with laughter. But some thought moving day would never come.
You got a match, Mark? Yeah, I got it.
A school board resolution almost prohibited the Lakeview Christian Academy from coming here. Lowell School was almost torn down. But people just wouldn't let a piece of history and opportunity for learning crumble. Their response changed the school board's mind. Today, kids were excited about going back to school. It's still August, but not too early to break into new gym. Last year, school was held in a construction trailer in the basement of Great Lakes Church.
It was very cold. Our thermostat was high, and we found out later that if you stood up, and sometimes I had the kids stand on the desks and raise their hands just to warm up their hands.
Principal Jerry Nierengarten says waiting for the approval to move has been hard, but that itself has been a lesson.
At times I wondered why it was so hard, but you know, in retrospect, now I know why it had to be that way. You just have to go through some things, and you just have to let things work out and play out. You know, we needed the public to know about this. It felt like home Wednesday when I received the keys at the closing. I came up here to make sure they worked and then walked through, and this was home, and it will be forever.
In Duluth, Molly McMillan, News 6.
Tom Foley put his Senate campaign on hold while he fought the release of rapist and child murderer Dennis Lenahan. His opponent, Ann Winia, continued to give politically correct speeches and collect special interest contributions. Lenahan was not.
2 years ago, when I first put Dennis Lenahan behind bars at St. Peter's Security Hospital, I didn't see anyone talking about the work I was doing then. So again, I'm proud of the work that I've done. This commercial shows the background and the hard work as county attorney.
A campaign isn't just about being tough on criminals, but it is about values and standing tall while others run. Tom Foley, he's not afraid to fight.
We now cover 13 hospitals, and we have to make sure our blood supply is adequate, and during the holidays it's harder to get blood, so we want to make sure we have enough to get us through Labor Day weekend.
Sorrow is our burden, and the loss of Tim is felt deeply by those who have known and loved him.
A tragic loss, such as the death of a police officer, hasn't happened once but twice in the city of St. Paul. Today's streets were filled with those who came to remember and say goodbye again to another courageous peace officer, Tim Jones.
Blessed are they who mourn, for they shall be comforted. And may the love of Jesus Christ, as it comforts you, cool your anger and give you the strength and courage to continue your life until you too are called home to spend eternity with Jesus and Tim.
Those present were urged not to reflect on today, but memories of Tim Jones and his faithful partner, Laser.
It is not enough to say that he is just in heaven. The fact is, heaven was made for people like Tim. He died as he had lived, trying to help others without thinking of himself. But we will always be thinking about you, Tim. My. Isn't he a piece of work?
Two St. Paul police officers gone in a few short moments, but they leave memories that will live on forever in the heart of St. Paul. Molly McMillan, News 6.
She voted against the bill which would have allowed snowmobilers to cross the county lines. Again, there's a lot of people in northeastern Minnesota that need snowmobiles to get around. She consistently has voted against them.
A just-released survey shows 38% of drivers polled have felt drowsy behind the wheel at some time. According to the U.S. Department of Transportation, driving while drowsy may contribute to as many as 200,000 vehicle accidents a year. Many widely used medications, though otherwise safe, can cause drowsiness. Experts say if you choose to drive while taking a sedating medication, you could be cruising for an accident.
Some medications have the potential to impact the central nervous system. They can cause an impairment in coordination, they can decrease reaction time, and they can cause drowsiness. and that combination would obviously impair one's driving ability.
Drivers should know 34 states, including Minnesota and Wisconsin, have laws that prohibit driving while under the influence of any substance that impairs driving, and that includes prescription medicines.
It's up to you to read the small print on the back of your medicine. If it warns that taking this medication could make you drowsy or encourages you not to operate a motor vehicle while under its influence, and you still choose to get behind the wheel, you could be in a lot of trouble if you have an accident.
It is the driver's responsibility to be at their best each and every time they're behind the wheel of the car or truck so that they do not injure themselves or anybody else on the road.
If you take a medication and have concerns about its effects, you should check with your doctor or pharmacist. There may be an alternative medicine you could take during the time you have to drive. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
The normal water level is 4.5 feet below the bank. So we're about almost 8 feet high now.
What drives taxes is spending. And for the life of me, I don't understand how in the world we can allow so much spending to go on and then be surprised at the tax consequences. That's why we led the reform for truth in taxation meetings, and it's starting to work.
I simply don't think property taxes are a fair way to go. The solution to it is controlling government spending, and the way to get controls on government spending are to take the long-term approach.
$1,500 new parking spots, a Dayton store, and a bigger Sears. Music to shoppers' ears. Miller Hill Mall officials say they're moving ahead with expansion plans. Mall owners met with Minnesota Department of Transportation representatives on Thursday, detailing plans for expanding the roads near and around the mall. But while developers are laying the groundwork for the project, officials say it's a long road to completion.
There will be permits required, probably if there are environmental issues as you change land use. So those will be a variety of agencies. Any development that occurs like this really is a very complex process.
MnDOT is currently developing transportation support and impact studies on the project, and while it's too early to draw any conclusions, developers know they may already have a battle on their hands. If expansion plans go through, this entire wooded area behind Miller Hill Mall will have to be leveled for construction, set to begin in the fall of 1995. And that's given environmentalists their own axe to grind. At the heart of the debate, Miller Hill Creek. Environmentalists say they're concerned about stormwater runoff from the mall's parking lot feeding into the creek. Runoff containing salt, sediments, gasoline, and oils.
And I think what's going to happen is there's going to reach a point, and I personally think we're at that point right now, where any more detrimental impact to Miller Creek is going to be what it takes to completely wipe out any brook trout that are existing below the mall area.
While mall officials say they are aware of the environmental concerns, environmentalists like Ortman say they will watch the city's permitting and zoning processes closely, making sure Miller Hill Mall leaves room for Miller Creek. In Duluth, Stephanie Guadian, News 6.
I wouldn't want to put the pain and suffering of this family's going through for somebody else and her grandchildren, and it's a tragic, it's a loss to us that we'll never forget.
On September 2nd, a North Shore family signed a contract with a salesman to have his company do nearly $10,000 worth of improvements to the exterior of their home. He claimed his company specialized in the installation of windows and siding. He wrote a down payment check for $2,700 and shook hands on the deal. That was the last time that family ever saw the salesman. They were not the only victims of that fraud. St. Louis County is aware of 15 other Northland families who were swindled, and there may be more. If you're a victim of a home improvement scam, call your local police or the St. Louis County Sheriff's Office. If you have any evidence or information against this man and need to keep your name out of it, you can always call Crime Stoppers. We guarantee your name won't be revealed. You could also get up to $1,000 in cash. Call 1-800-974-TIPS or 723-ENOUGH.
The streets need to be done. They've been neglected for 15 years. Nothing has been done. And now, unfortunately, we're paying more now than we would have had to had they been maintained all along.
Our position is that the New Bloom youngster should be tried as an adult and face adult consequences because of the serious nature of the crime he's alleged to have committed.
Okay.
Which John has produced food for the community for years, and his.
And I think local, whether at the food shelf or at the soup kitchen.
Don't leave the house. It's an ongoing fight. It's become worse. We thought at one point we were going to really get over the top of this thing, but it has become worse in our community and throughout our state. We're going to see in the coming years a lot of ramifications from letting the most vulnerable people in our society go hungry.
Number one, this will allow us to maintain many of the diverse vocational programs that we now have and possibly expand into auto body and some of the other programs that are much needed by our students today.
I think our prime concern is that a lot of children walk to and from activities after school. If they're bused to Bryant now, they will not be able to walk to and from school for after-school activities or to school.
At some point in time, there has to be that trust with management to carry out the process.
And trust is something school administrators have had a problem with. There's the on-again, off-again resignation of former Superintendent Reginald Nolan, the talk of a lawsuit relating to former Assistant Superintendent Dick Messingberg, accusations of financial impropriety, and the revolving door for superintendents. All of this turmoil has resulted in a number of key district leaders leaving Duluth.
I think everybody gets frustrated, and they will only, beat their heads up against the wall for a certain period of time and say, hey, it's not worth it.
That wall, according to Assistant Duluth Superintendent Norm Chafee, is the school board. But Chafee has solutions to the problem. For starters, Chafee says Duluth's 9-person board is too big. He recommends 6 or 7 members, saying that would reduce bickering. And that's more compatible with other districts. Something else Chafee recommends is eliminating the structure that allows board members to represent only certain parts of the community. By having only at-large members, the entire community would have representation. And finally, a complete overhaul of how the board and superintendent function together.
I truly think that in well-run districts, the board just deals with policy and lets the management operate that particular district. And I see that as a major problem that's facing Duluth.
But some school board members aren't ready to give up that power. They feel they were elected by the public to serve their parts of the city. School board chair George Balich, however, is more moderate in his viewpoint.
When the new superintendent comes aboard, that individual will have to take a look at the structure and work with all the shareholders, gathering input from the board, from the people in the buildings to decide what structure works best for everybody concerned. I think the most important thing to do is get the input.
One suggestion that's been made to keep a superintendent in Duluth is to choose someone local. But Chafee says that probably wouldn't work. A local candidate would come to the table with their own agenda. Balich says, however, the idea of a local candidate for superintendent has merit and won't be ruled out. The board has set a goal to hire by the end of the month. In Duluth, Molly McMillan, News 6.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate all your efforts. We appreciate you coming to visit us. There you go. Thank you. I think you probably have some questions.
And one of the things we found that a lot of people do, because there are a lot of women that don't get mammograms either because they don't perceive the risk or their doctors don't recommend it. And when I first got in this, I didn't realize that the greatest risk for women is age. The older you get, especially over the age of 50, your risk goes up. So let's say by the time you're 70, your risk is like 1 in 12. 40 and 50 is 1 or 2 years, depending on the recommendation of your doctor. Okay. Now, back in April,
Tonight, do you want to lose weight or feel less stressed? Beware, thousands seeking help become victims. Don't you be taken. Watch this special report on NBC Nightly News tonight.
Coming up tonight on the 6 o'clock news, the rebuilding of Haiti could be good economic news for the Northland. We'll tell you why. The Minnesota Department of Transportation is improving the way it gets ice off the roads. You'll see how they're doing it. Plus, Mr. Bill, the now famous man on the roof of the Union Gospel Mission, wants to reach his fundraising goals. We'll tell you how you can help. For these stories and more, join us for tonight's 6 o'clock news.
A Minnesota Pollution Control Agency contractor spent today testing to find out what's causing the smell that's made several people sick. Tim Music of the MPCA says the smell may be gasoline.
It could be a historical issue due to some past spillages
or leaks or line leaks. It could be a current issue. It could come from currently operated underground storage tanks and/or lines. It could come from a spill.
Inspectors say they've had difficulty pinpointing the smell and where it's coming from.
The difficulty down here is that underneath the ground here is just loaded with current and old, what I call conduits. Could be storm sewer lines, sanitary sewer lines, power lines, telephone lines, steam lines.
The MPCA is expecting test results within the next 24 hours.
Well, we're very lucky. The operator is lucky. Thank God he's not dead. I really appreciate that.
Costa Limberios was at the Superior City Council meeting Tuesday night looking for a license to operate a dry nightclub. The club would cater to young adults who aren't old enough to go to bars. His supporters spoke in favor of the idea.
Right now, there's no place for them to go, and I know what happens when kids have no place to go. And I'm sure some of you have seen what happens.
Problems arise because Limberios wants to operate the non-alcohol club in the Casablanca, a building he leases from the city of Superior. Even though he wants to donate profits from the club to charity, many councillors don't like the Casablanca's location in the Tavern District. They feel it's not an ideal place for underage people.
And some of the councillors are balking at it, and you get some department heads that have a problem with it. I don't know. It gets political, and you got too many councillors that are in political seasons and afraid to make up their minds and afraid to take stands, and it's really not a lot of fun to be part of when people don't have the courage to do what's really right for their community.
The council voted to deny Limberios' license application. In Superior, Dave Anderson, News 6.
Young man, energetic, you could have some future if you didn't do these things.
Proposing new agencies, new commissions, new studies, all the things that cost a lot of money. Somehow we all have to start working together and realize that we're strengthening the state if we strengthen our communities, if we work together to strengthen, to keep the social fabric together.
For Congress, that's going to cost a lot of money to do a special election. In the year 2000 for president.
Proposing new agencies, new commissions, new studies, all the things that cost a lot of money, information that they have, and some of the tools. And it's cost effective because instead of being a drain on the state, being a drain on the communities, it's going to be bringing back and a lot.
Date for most of you, January 17th, for us to get together.
And our goal is to lower the numbers of youth using tobacco and get some positive message about being smoke-free in our community.
We grew up in the East Hillside, and our house overlooked Lake Superior. And I can remember my brother, when I was younger, always getting up in the morning and looking out the window and watching the ships come in and go through the bridge.
Peering down the hillside, one can now see a large monument dedicated to 130 persons who gave their lives and the 6 individuals who are still missing, all Northlanders who served in the battle known as Vietnam. The bunker represents a part of history not easily forgotten, so the time has come for the creation of a memorial that not only honors those who died or are missing, but those who served.
History is one of the most important parts of our society. We as Vietnam veterans were part of history. Now our job is to preserve this history in a unique way because we are still alive.
It will be called the Vietnam Veterans Archival and Artifact Project, and it will honor the more than 20,000 Northlanders who served in Vietnam. Whether it be as a soldier, nurse, or USO performer, whether you served your duty in Vietnam or stateside, any Northlander who is a part of the Vietnam War is asked to donate some type of war artifact to the project.
A picture, obituaries, remembrances, letters, things so that people will know who these men were, so that they can be able to put a face with the name and be able to read and see in their own words who these people were.
Project volunteers will spend the next 16 months collecting the artifacts, a task which will require an enormous amount of man-hours. But once completed, the new memorial will allow generations, present and future, to look back on a generation past, but certainly not forgotten. In Duluth, John Jetta, News 6.
Sat till I got cold and then started to walk. And it seemed like the deer just jumped up in front of me and I shot it.
May God have mercy on your soul.
It took Circuit Judge Frank Bell longer to impose the sentence than the 20 minutes it took the jury to find Hill guilty of 2 counts of murder.
Defendant Paul Jennings Hill is hereby sentenced in count 1 to death for the murder of Dr. John Baynard Britton. It is further ordered that the defendant Paul Jennings Hill is hereby sentenced in count 2 to death for the murder of James Herman Barrett.
The sentence brought this immediate reaction.
This man is innocent and his blood will be on your hands.
Hill was hustled out of the courtroom as the woman continued to scream. She is an anti-abortion protester from Kansas City, and she was held for questioning. Afterwards, Hill's supporters condemned the sentence.
This is not a deterrent at all. It never will be a deterrent.
One of the victim's sons called it justice.
Each of us has to individually deal with God, and we do not need zealots and put Bible-thumping, trigger-pulling people to tell us how to live our lives.
And neither side in this controversy believes that Pensacola has seen the last of the violence. In Pensacola, Florida, I'm Mike Vasalinda reporting for NBC News.
It's a test ophthalmologists have been using to determine muscle imbalance in the eye for years. Now, the State Patrol is using the test, called horizontal gaze nystagmus, to determine if a driver's been drinking. If your eye twitches during the test, the officer will suspect you've consumed alcohol.
A seasoned drinker can control himself to the point where occasionally they can fool an officer actually be over the influence and not get arrested.
But even a regular drinker can't fake the gaze nystagmus test. This man drank 8 beers and a mixed drink in just a few hours and still passed 2 physical tests, commonly used to spot drunk drivers. An officer probably would have let him go, but he failed after the trooper looked into his eyes.
I feel fine. I mean, to drive, physically fine. Knowing what I know I'm probably over the level of lawful driving, but physically, I could pass pretty much anything that they try.
A common misconception. The State Patrol says drivers get behind the wheel because they're feeling confident and cause half of the fatal accidents on Minnesota highways and roads every year. By training officers with national standardized field sobriety testing, the State Patrol is hoping they'll catch those drivers who think they can drive drunk.
If you plan on having a couple of drinks over the holidays, the State Patrol wants you to keep this in mind. With new forms of testing, they'll be able to predict your blood alcohol level within just a couple of points of what it actually is without giving you a breathalyzer test.
In Duluth, Molly McMillan, News 6.
Does the average citizen have anything to be concerned about? The problem with the overcrowding is that it causes additional tensions within the jail facility. And based on our limited staff, that we are understaffed, and increasing tensions because of overcrowding does create a security problem.
Very tough. This is one of our older homes in town again now, and it's been remodeled and revised into apartment buildings and things like that, so they get pretty chopped up and real hard to navigate in.
I just love taking pictures.
A light December snow on a Saturday in Nickerson will be Christine Carlson's studio today. Her favorite subject is her young son, Kian.
But see, he sets them up. I mean, he just goes places and then he'll say, take a picture of this.
She calls one of her favorite photographs Brotherly Love. Taken because her older son is in the military, it's a keepsake she wanted to share. So she entered in a national contest, never expecting to win, but she did.
We were just saying goodbye to Jimmy, so Kian was kind of snuggled up to his shoulder, and we love Jimmy, don't we?
Christine calls her cabin in the woods the perfect environment for pictures.
Let me try another one here. That's it. Oh, you're so good.
This was the cabin she came to as a little girl. She says it was her dream to come back here someday, but there's still one more dream to fulfill.
Do a book with some children's things in it and some poetry and some photography, and that's what it would be. My son keeps saying, write a book, so someday I will.
So for now, Christine says photography will remain a hobby, so that from time to time when she takes out her handmade photo album, she can recall those same feelings captured in her work. In Nickerson, Molly McMillan, News 6.
We just got started, so we haven't got anything yet.
It's a little bit later than most years, but it's finally time to go ice fishing.
First trip out this year, we're trying to see what we can do. But you got 12, 13 inches ice, so it's fairly safe for snowmobiles and that kind of stuff. But I think another 2-3 nights of zero weather before you can bring a car out here.
Raleigh Taylor has been fishing on Fish Lake for a while. He knows the lake well enough to know when it's safe. And he's got a simple system to determine when it's safe.
And what do you use?
Somebody else.
Yeah.
Wait till they've been out fishing, and we checked with the Saturday. We checked with the resort here, and they said there was anywhere from 6 to 12 inches ice on the lake. So we thought, well, that's pretty safe to come out then.
That's really what it takes, knowing how thick the ice is where you're fishing. Ice is generally safe enough for walking with 4 to 6 inches. You need about 6 to 8 for snowmobiles and four-wheelers, and 14 inches or more to drive a car. These are only estimates, of course, and any lake connected to a river or stream with underwater currents can be different.
Give it a good thickness before we come out. We're not early birds.
The best advice if you don't know a lake is to find somebody who does. They'll tell you how thick the ice is on the lake overall, and they can warn you about spots like this where the ice might be too thin. Raleigh's still looking for a bite, but now that the season's underway, he's got his portable ice house, and he's ready to get down to business.
We got our heater in there. And
propane heater?
Propane heater, and it stays pretty warm in there. Pretty nice, and the holes don't even freeze up on you. And if the fish will cooperate, we got her made.
On Fish Lake, Derek Hines, News 6.
You know, are we going to lose everything, you know, jobs? It hits you right in the heart. You don't know what to do.
Janet Halfdahl was on her way to work at 5 this morning when a police officer stopped her and told her she couldn't park anywhere near downtown. That's when she learned the Phoenix building was on fire, just a few stores away from where she worked.
I was coming to work, and they wouldn't let me on Superior Street, not even park. And so I watched the fire for a while. Then I called my boss, and he said he'd be down shortly. And then within 45 minutes later,